Welcome to another episode of People Pod. I am your host, and today we are doing a deep dive into something that, honestly, I find kind of baffling.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. And as the resident music industry expert here, I am so excited for this one.
Right, because we're looking at a huge contradiction. Like, how do you become the most talked about person on the planet, completely reshape how the global music industry operates, and earn the title of the defining pop star of the 21st century?
While also not giving a single traditional print interview for, a decade?
Exactly, yes.
Full decade. I mean, it sounds impossible. The modern machinery of fame basically demands constant visibility.
Yeah.
You know, you were supposed to do the press junkets, sit on the late-night couches, do the deeply revealing magazine profiles.
You feed the machine.
Right. The assumption is that if you stop feeding the algorithm, the world just simply moves on to someone else who will.
Yet today, for you listening, we are taking a deep dive into an artist who completely shattered that playbook. We are talking about Beyonce Giselle Knowles-Carter.
The one and only.
And our mission here is to really trace her evolution. You know, going from a young girl sweeping hair in a Houston salon to this massive cultural auteur, a figure who doesn't just participate in the music industry, but actually bends its structural rules to her will.
And I think this story is so essential for you to understand, regardless of whether you actually follow pop music or not.
Oh, totally.
Because Beyonce has really transcended the role of just an entertainer. She operates as a mirror for modern culture. She's a meticulous musical archivist. And frankly, she's a masterclass in absolute narrative control.
Especially in an era where everyone is constantly trying to pull you apart online.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the institution that she is today, you have to look at the crucible that forged her. So we start in Houston, Texas in 1981. She was born to Tina, who was a salon owner of Louisiana Creole descent, and Matthew Knowles, an African-American Xerox sales manager.
A pretty normal middle-class setup.
Right. And her very first performances were literally sweeping up hair in her mother's salon, just putting on little shows for the customers.
Which is such a great visual. But, you know, her vocal talent was actually initially spotted by a dance instructor.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was just humming a melody during class, and this young kid just casually finished the phrasing for him perfectly.
Wow. That's incredible. But it wasn't all just, instant success after that.
Not at all. It's a grounding origin, but the real turning point is actually a moment of severe public failure.
The Star Search thing.
Yeah. In 1993, she was fronting this early girl group called Girls' Time, and they managed to get on Star Search.
And we should clarify for you listening, getting on Star Search in the early 90s, that was the absolute pinnacle.
Oh, for sure.
It was basically the gatekeeper to the entire American entertainment industry.
Exactly. It was a massive deal, and they lost.
Man. On national television.
On national television, they were defeated. And Beyonce would later attribute that loss to a really poor song choice, a decision that was made by the adults who were running the group at the time.
Interesting.
What's fascinating here is how that specific high-profile failure functioned for her psychologically.
Like it changed her.
Yeah. Experiencing that caliber of public rejection at such a formative age, it seems to have triggered her legendary work ethic. And more importantly, this intense, unrelenting need to control her own creative output.
Because she learned the cost of putting crucial decisions in the hands of outside producers.
Exactly.
Which triggers this incredible reaction from her family. Because, a normal family experiences a huge loss like that and says, well, it was a good try, let's focus on algebra.
Right, let's go back to school.
But instead, Matthew Knowles quits his corporate management job at Xerox to manage the group full-time.
Which is wild.
It is. That decision immediately halved the family's income.
It is a staggering financial gamble.
Yeah, I look at this like a high-stakes startup incubator.
Yeah.
You have these founders who are so obsessed with a singular vision that they literally mortgage their entire existence.
Yep.
The financial strain on the Knowles family was so immense that they actually had to move into separate apartments.
And you really have to think about the pressure that puts on a kid.
Oh, totally. The pressure even caused her parents to briefly separate before the group finally secured a deal with Columbia Records and, evolved into Destiny's Child.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really explains the gravity she brings to her career later on.
How so?
Well, her entire family structure, their financial ruin, and their eventual salvation, it was all completely predicated on her ability to perform.
That is an enormous burden for a teenager.
Exactly. Failure was quite simply not a financial option for them anymore.
And she didn't fail. Destiny's Child achieved staggering success. I mean, their second album, The Writings on the Wall, moved 13 million copies worldwide.
Huge numbers.
But being the standout star of a successful group is very different from being a singular cultural force.
Yeah, to do that, you have to transition from a collective identity to a distinct solo voice.
Right.
And she makes that leap in 2003 with her debut solo album, Dangerously in Love.
Oh, yeah.
Driven by the massive hit Crazy in Love, which featured her future husband, Jay-Z. It proved she possessed the gravitational pull to hold the center stage entirely on her own.
But stepping into that soloist spotlight brings an overwhelming, almost blinding level of fame, which leads us to a fascinating pivot in this deep dive.
The Sasha Fierce era.
Yes. In 2008, she releases a double album called I Am Sasha Fierce, and she formally introduces this alter ego to the public.
Right.
One half of the album features vulnerable acoustic R&B ballads, and that represents the I Am side. The other half is this aggressive, Europop-infused dance music representing Sasha Fierce.
It is a highly structured splitting of her persona.
Okay, I have to admit, I've always been a bit cynical about the whole Sasha Fierce era.
Oh, really?
Yeah. To me, splitting a double album into traditional R&B and high-tempo Europop just sounds like a brilliant, highly calculated way to ensure you dominate both urban and mainstream pop radio formats simultaneously.
That's a fair point.
I want you listening to think about this too. Was there actually a genuine psychological need for an alter ego to survive mega fame, or was it just masterful music marketing?
It is an excellent pushback, and honestly, the reality is that those two things are not mutually exclusive.
Okay, so it was both.
Yeah. Psychologically, it provided a necessary armor. Remember, she had just quietly married Jay-Z in 2008.
Oh, that's right.
She was fiercely protective of her newlywed private life. So the alter ego allowed her to keep her vulnerable self entirely separate from the aggressive, untouchable gladiator she needed to be in stadium tours.
That makes sense.
She could channel influences like Michael Jackson and Tina Turner on stage and then just leave that persona behind in the dressing room.
But the marketing element was undeniable, right?
Absolutely. From a marketing perspective, it handed the media a pre-packaged, really compelling narrative to debate right when she was solidifying her status as a global icon. It was just brilliant business.
Sasha Fierce was a way to control her psychology and her marketing. But by 2011, she realized controlling her mind and her image wasn't enough. Not if she didn't possess absolute control over her business, too.
Right.
Behind the scenes, she was navigating profound personal trauma. She suffered a miscarriage, which she later described as the saddest thing she had ever endured.
Which is heartbreaking.
It is. And following that period, she makes a really ruthless professional decision. She fires her father, Matthew, as her manager.
Severing that professional tie is the ultimate declaration of independence.
Yeah.
She took a career hiatus, completely restructuring her inner circle so that she was the undeniable chief executive of her own enterprise.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
She comes back from that hiatus and completely breaks the mechanics of the global music industry.
Literally broke it.
I want you to think about the last time you were genuinely surprised by a piece of media. In an era where data miners leak movie trailers and album track lists months in advance, keeping a secret is nearly impossible.
Almost unheard of.
But on December 13th, 2013, she drops her self-titled visual album, Beyonce, directly onto iTunes. No prior announcement.
None.
No pre-release singles. No press tour. Just an entire album, complete with a high-budget music video for every single track, appearing basically out of thin air.
The audacity of doing a visual album like that cannot be overstated. Standard industry practice dictates that you release a lead single to test the market first.
Right, to see if it even works.
Exactly. If it charts, then the label gives you the budget to shoot a video. But she fronted the capital to shoot 17 music videos across the globe in absolute secrecy, without any guarantee that a single song would resonate with the public.
It's the equivalent of a major Hollywood studio dropping a $200 million blockbuster into theaters at midnight with zero trailers and just assuming the cultural gravity of the director will fill the seats.
And it worked.
It totally worked. It sold 1 million digital copies in 6 days. But the long-term impact is what really fascinates me. Because it dropped on a Friday, it completely rewrote the structural rules of music distribution.
But this is a crucial piece of industry history. Prior to this, the global release day for music was Tuesday.
which always seems so random to me.
Well, it wasn't arbitrary. It was based on physical logistics. Record labels needed the weekend to ship boxes of physical CDs to big box retailers. That allowed clerks to stock the shelves on a slow Monday night for a Tuesday morning release.
Ah, okay. But the digital era made those physical shipping logistics completely obsolete.
Precisely. Yet the industry stubbornly clung to the Tuesday rule just out of habit.
Wow.
By dropping a massive digital success on a Friday, Beyonce proved that you could capture the weekend listening audience instantly.
Right.
The success was so undeniable that it literally forced the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry to officially, permanently change the global release day for music from Tuesday to Friday.
So she didn't just top the charts, she altered the supply chain of the entire industry.
Exactly.
Having secured absolute creative and structural control, she pivots. She realizes she no longer needs to make standard pop anthems to maintain her relevance. She begins using her massive platform to make sweeping, unapologetic cultural and political statements.
We see this materialize fully in 2016 with Lemonade. It is widely regarded as her masterpiece.
Oh, absolutely.
It is a dense, genre-spanning visual album that tackles incredibly heavy, complex themes. You know, the historical trauma of Black womanhood in America, the necessity of reconciliation, and the visceral personal pain of alleged marital infidelity.
And the cultural shift becomes explosive at Super Bowl 50.
Yeah.
She performs her lead single, Formation, during the halftime show. Her backup dancers are dressed in black leather and berets, outfits that clearly and deliberately pay homage to the Black Panther Party.
Yeah, that was a huge moment.
And we need to pause here. Now, looking at this completely impartially, simply as a collision of pop culture and politics for our deep dive today, the backlash was immediate and severe.
It was a massive flashpoint. Several conservative figures and law enforcement organizations expressed outright outrage.
Right, because they argued the imagery was inherently anti-police.
Exactly. And they pointed out that the NFL's own rules prohibit political statements during its broadcasts. Multiple police unions even called for their members to boycott, providing security for her upcoming world tour.
Which raises a really important question for you listening. Does reaching a billionaire level of fame, becoming a global institution, insulate an artist from political backlash, or does it simply turn them into a much larger target?
I think it undeniably turns them into a larger target. When your platform reaches hundreds of millions of people, every symbol, every costume choice, and every lyric is just heavily scrutinized.
For sure.
But what is truly remarkable here is her strategic response to those police boycotts.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
She did not issue an apology, nor did she go on a press tour to explain herself. Instead, she manufactured Boycott Beyonce merchandise and sold it at the official merch stands of her own tour.
I still can't get over that. It is defensive jujitsu.
It really is.
You take the exact weapon being used to dismantle your reputation and you turn it into a revenue stream at your own concerts.
It is the ultimate assertion of narrative control. She acknowledged the controversy, diffused its power with profound confidence, and capitalized on it financially.
So, having conquered pop mechanics and stepped firmly into the political arena, she transitions into a totally different phase of her career. Recently, she has taken on the role of a musical historian, using her albums to reclaim marginalized genres.
She announced an ongoing 3-part project to do exactly this.
Right.
Act 1 was Renaissance, released in 2022. It was a meticulously researched, joyous reclamation of the Black and queer roots of dance, disco, and house music genres that had their underground origins largely paved over by mainstream pop history.
And then Act 2 arrives in 2024 with Cowboy Carter. This time, she fuses Americana to highlight the deeply hidden, often intentionally erased history of Black pioneers in the development of country music.
And the impact was instantaneous.
Oh, yeah. The lead single, Texas Hold'em, made her the first Black woman in history to top the Billboard Hot 100 with a country song. She is effectively forcing massive, pop-centric audiences to engage with complex musicology they would normally ignore.
Academics have actually been paying very close attention to this methodology. Scholars compare her current era to a modern-day griot.
A griot? What is that?
In West African tradition, a griot is a storyteller, a historian, and a musician who is tasked with keeping the oral history of a culture alive.
Oh, wow. I love that connection.
Yeah, Beyonce is utilizing the machinery of a massive pop rollout as a Trojan horse to educate the masses about their own musical heritage.
But, operating at this scale invites a unique type of scrutiny. When you are an institution with 35 Grammys and Billboard names you the 5th top songwriter of the 21st century, The mechanics of how you create that art are heavily dissected.
Naturally.
And one of the most persistent critiques involves the sheer number of co-writers on her tracks.
It is a frequent point of debate. You can look at the liner notes of a modern Beyonce song and see 10, sometimes 15 writers credited on a single track.
So what does this all mean? If I pick up a novel and see 15 authors on the cover, I assume I'm reading a corporate textbook, not a singular piece of art. If there are 15 writers credited on a song, does traditional authorship even apply? Is it still truly her song?
See, that is a fundamental misunderstanding of how modern music copyright and production actually function.
Okay, explain that.
The idea of the lone genius weeping over an acoustic guitar is largely a myth in modern pop architecture. When you see 15 writers, it rarely means 15 people sitting in a room with a notepad. It is a reflection of sampling and interpolation laws. If she uses a specific drum loop from a producer, that's a writer. If she interpolates a vocal melody from a 1970s soul track, the original writers of that 1970s track are legally added to the new credits.
Ah, so it's an accumulation of copyright, not necessarily a committee of lyricists.
Exactly. Collaborators describe her process as being a meticulous curator. She operates much more like a film director.
That makes a lot of sense.
She will take a beat from one producer, ask a second producer to write a bridge, take a lyrical concept from a third writer, and she pieces those fragments together in the editing room to fit a very strict, uncompromising vision.
Right.
In the modern industry, directing the architecture of a song is recognized as a highly skilled form of songwriting.
But the scrutiny doesn't just stop at how she builds her songs. It extends heavily to how she operates as a business entity. And we saw this starkly with the 2023 Dubai controversy.
Yeah.
After releasing Renaissance, which, as we discussed, was universally praised as a beautiful tribute to underground queer culture, she performed a private, invite-only concert in Dubai.
And she was reportedly paid $24 million for that single performance.
Now, presenting this entirely impartially, I have to push back on the idea that she can seamlessly navigate all these spaces without compromising her message.
How so?
You cannot divorce the art from the commerce here. If your album is a dedicated tribute to queer pioneers and you accept $24 million from a government in the United Arab Emirates that strictly criminalizes homosexuality, isn't that a massive, undeniable contradiction?
It is a massive contradiction, and it perfectly encapsulates the reality of an artist operating at the scale of a gross domestic product.
Yeah.
Presenting this neutrally, the tension here is the reality of global commerce at the absolute highest levels of fame. She is simultaneously an activist archivist and a multinational corporate entity.
And those two things are bound to clash.
Exactly. An entity of that size is inevitably going to collide with its own messaging when navigating hundreds of millions of dollars in the global market.
Which brings us to the broader question of her legacy. How do you even measure a footprint this vast? We are talking about an artist who hasn't just moved over 200 million records. Her cultural impact has literally altered the English language. Like, the dictionary officially added the word bootylicious because of her influence.
And even the scientific community has felt the need to acknowledge her scale.
Wait, really?
Yes. An Australian researcher discovered a rare golden-haired species of horsefly and formally named it Scaptia Beyonce in her honor.
That is hilarious and amazing.
It is. Beyond the dictionary and the entomologists, her actual artistry is dissected at the highest levels of academia, with Yale University offering courses analyzing her legacy.
But perhaps her most vital contribution to the medium of music itself is that she single-handedly revitalized the cohesive album format.
Oh, absolutely.
In an era where streaming algorithms were training every other artist to pivot to quick, disposable singles, she proved that audiences still possess the attention span for deep, narrative-led, visual album experiences.
Which leaves us with a fascinating paradox to consider for everyone listening.
Get honest.
When an artist has completely conquered their medium, when they have rewritten the physical distribution rules of their industry, and when they have taken on the monumental task of archiving their culture's history, what is left for them to prove?
Wow.
Can an artist who has effectively become an institution themselves continue to authentically subvert the very establishment they now rule?
That is the multi-million-dollar question. How do you rage against the machine when you are the machine? It is definitely something for you to keep in mind the next time she surprise drops a project that stops the world in its tracks. Thanks for listening to People MPod. Keep tuning in for more stories worth knowing.